When the Autobots were driven from their home planet of Cybertron by the Decepticons, they didn't give up hope. They established a new base on planet Earth and instantly began to make plans to recapture Cybertron from their enemies. Unknown to the Autobots, however, there was a Decepticon spy in their midst, Laserbeak. When they were almost ready to move, he carried the news to Megatron, leader of the Decepticons, who wasted no time. The battle was on again, and this time there was yet another enemy against the Autobots, the giant metal planet Unicron. Transformers, the movie. For many years, things had gone badly for the Autobots. They had fought hard against their enemies, the Decepticons. In the end, they had been driven from their home planet Cybertron. But the Autobots never gave up hope. They made their base on planet Earth. They made friends with an Earth boy, Spike. In the course of time, they were poised to recapture Cybertron. 2 of Cybertron's moons were Autobot outposts. Moonbase 1 was military headquarters for the invasion, and Moonbase 2 was a forward observation post manned by Bumblebee and Spike, now a grown man. On Moonbase 1, Ironhide watched the monitor patiently, while the Autobot commander, Optimus Prime, studied the invasion plan. All the Autobots required now was a supply of Energon cubes to power the invasion force. Ironhide spoke.
Well, I'm tired of this waiting, Prime. When are we gonna start busting Decepticons? Listen, Ironhide, we don't have enough Energon cubes to power a full-scale assault, said Optimus Prime. I want you to make a special run to Earth for another supply. Prepare the shuttle for launch.
In a short time, the shuttle was ready. Optimus Prime watched as it blasted off.
All we need, he said, is a little Energon and a lot of luck.
Just as he spoke, a cassette ejected from a console behind him. Unseen by Prime, it transformed into the Decepticon spy Laserbeak, who hurtled at top speed down to the surface of Cybertron to report to his leader, Megatron. Megatron made his plans and issued his orders. The Decepticon spaceship lifted off from Cybertron, packed with Decepticons. In the Autobot shuttle, Prowl and Ironhide sat at the controls. Cybertron was dropping behind fast when, without warning, a section of the shuttle wall exploded under a blast of laser fire. Decepticons poured in, and in moments the Autobot crew had been overcome. Megatron was triumphant.
We will slip through Autobot security in their own shuttle. Autobot City will be destroyed. The Autobots will be vanquished forever.
On the other side of the galaxy, on planet Earth, all was peaceful. Near Autobot City, a boy and an Autobot were fishing. The boy was Daniel, the young son of Spike, and the Autobot was his best friend, Hot Rod. Daniel was looking glum. He missed his father, far away on Moonbase 2.
The shuttle from Cybertron is coming,
he said.
Let's watch it land.
Hot Rod transformed, and they sped to a lookout point on a mountain high above Autobot City. Daniel was watching the shuttle make its approach run through a telescope when he cried,
Hot Rod! Something's wrong! There's a hole in the shuttle!
Hot Rod looked up.
Decepticons!
He cried. In seconds, the battle for Autobot City was raging. The city transformed to its fortress guise, and the defenders fought furiously against Megatron's army of Decepticon warriors. But they were outnumbered, and soon they were forced to fall back. Ultra Magnus, city commander, sent a message to Optimus Prime to come to their help. Even as the message was going out, the Decepticons destroyed the Autobot Communications Center. Megatron prepared for the final attack as the mighty Devastator tore down the city defenses. Then, with a roar of jets, Optimus Prime's relief force swept in over the battle. Autobots spilled from the shuttle, firing as they charged to the attack. The Decepticons found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire. It was their turn to fall back. Optimus Prime charged at the head of the warriors. Suddenly, in front, stood his arch-enemy, Megatron.
At last!
Cried Optimus Prime.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
Then the two gigantic robots fell upon each other. Both were badly damaged by the time that Prime, with a last burst of strength, sent Megatron crashing from high on the city walls to the ground far below. There was a brief flicker of electricity. Then the Decepticon leader lay still. Starscream raced up with the remainder of the Decepticon force.
Astro Train!
He cried.
Transform and get us out of here!
Soundwave picked up the battered Megatron and carried him aboard. Then Astrotrain blasted off in a hail of Autobot fire in full retreat back to Cybertron. As the dust of battle settled, the Autobots gathered about their fallen leader. His metalwork was scorched and dented. Only a faint glow from his eyes showed that he was still functioning. Optimus Prime was dying. In a faint voice, he said,
"Do not grieve. Ultra Magnus, it is to you, old friend, I shall pass the matrix of leadership as it was passed to me."
I am not worthy of it.
said Ultra Magnus.
I am just a soldier.
You will keep it
Continued Optimus Prime.
until the day that an Autobot steps from your ranks and uses the power of the Matrix to light our darkest hour.
He opened the compartment in his chest and lifted out the crystal of pure energy. Then his strength failed and it dropped from his hand. Hot Rod caught it and passed it to Ultra Magnus. The new leader placed the glowing matrix in his own body cavity. As he looked down at Optimus Prime, his eyes began to shine with power. Optimus Prime's own eyes grew bright for a moment, then faded and went blank. He was dead. Out in the endless blackness of space, the passing of Optimus Prime flickered across a bank of monitor screens inside a strange planet-like object. As big as a small world, the ringed and snow-capped metal sphere moved not in a planetary orbit, but in a straight line towards Cybertron. Aboard Astrotrain, the Decepticons were recovering from their defeat. The shuttle Decepticon labored on full power. Starscream had taken charge, and Astrotrain spoke urgently to him.
If we don't jettison some weight, we'll never make it as far as Cybertron.
You heard what he said.
Said Starscream, looking round.
It's the survival of the fittest.
Said Bone Crusher. Next moment, a side entry port was open, and the unhurt Decepticons began to throw the wounded out into space. Starscream dragged Megatron to the port and hurled him out after the rest. Lighter, Astrotrain blasted off, leaving the others adrift in space. Out of the darkness loomed a planet. The wounded Decepticons drifted towards it. Suddenly, Megatron found himself held fast in a powerful magnetic beam. A deep voice spoke.
Welcome, Megatron. I am Unicron. I have summoned you here for a purpose. You are to destroy the Autobot matrix of leadership. I will provide you with a new body and new warriors to command.
In a blaze of energy, Megatron was reconstructed as the mighty Galvatron. The broken remains of the other Decepticons became aircraft transformers under the leadership of Scourge and Cyclonus. Lastly, Unicron produced an immense new spaceship to lead Galvatron's armada.
Now go! Destroy the Autobot matrix!
Roared the voice of the metal planet. Meanwhile, Astrotrain had made it safely back to Cybertron. After a lot of argument, the Decepticons had accepted Starscream as leader. But now he wanted to make his leadership official. He summoned every Decepticon to the Hall of Heroes. High above one end of the hall stood the throne of the Decepticons. As the crowd of Decepticons looked on, Starscream stood in front of the throne, making a speech. On his head, he wore a gold crown, and Thrust and Ramjet stood on either side of him. He paused for a moment. Like everyone else, he had heard the sound of distant jets. Then, suddenly, the hall was filled as Galvatron and his warriors poured in.
Who disrupts my coronation?
Shouted Starscream.
It is I, Galvatron!
Came the answer, as Galvatron transformed to his cannon shape and blasted Starscream out of existence. As he transformed back, Starscream's crown rolled down the steps to the throne. Galvatron crushed it to fragments underfoot. After only a little hesitation, the assembled Decepticons cried together,
Long live Galvatron!
On Moonbase 1, Jazz and Cliffjumper looked out into space. Bearing down on them was a monstrous planet shape.
Where'd that come from?
Cried Jazz.
Who cares?
Shouted Cliffjumper.
I'm more worried where it's going.
Quickly, Jazz called up Earth.
Talk to me, Earth. We got a situation out here.
On Earth, repair work was going on at Autobot City. Blaster called.
I'm getting a faint signal.
He transformed, and the others listened to Jazz's voice.
A weird-looking planet just showed up, and it's attacking Moonbase 1.
Back at Moonbase 1, Jazz and Cliffjumper raced to their shuttle and took off as two giant claws gripped Moonbase 1 and began to drag it towards a vast circular opening. As the shuttle moved away, Moonbase 1 was crushed to fragments and sucked inside. A moment later, with engines still at full power, the shuttle was sucked in also. Spike and Bumblebee watched in horror from Moonbase 2. They had to do something. The base contained a great store of explosives. Setting a timer, they blasted clear in their shuttle. Once more, the claws gripped and drew in Moonbase 2. There came the roar of an explosion.
It isn't even dented!
Cried Spike. And next moment, they in turn were drawn into the interior of the evil monster. Daniel sat on RC's shoulder and watched helplessly as a video monitor showed the fate of Moonbase 2.
What about my dad?
He cried.
Daniel, we'll do everything we can for Spike.
Said Ultra Magnus.
Autobots, prepare for takeoff. We must destroy this thing before it devours Cybertron.
As they moved towards the shuttles, Springer pointed up and cried,
Look!
Diving to the attack were Galvatron and the Decepticons. At the same moment, the Dinobots lumbered up to help their friends. In a hail of fire, the Autobots boarded the two space shuttles, followed by the Dinobots. Soon they left the Decepticons far behind, and the Autobots began to relax. In one shuttle, Cup put the controls on automatic, while he told stories to Grimlock and the other Dinobots. Hot Rod put in some weapon practice with the Autocombatant. The shuttles were cruising close past a large planet when the Decepticons struck again. The fight was fast and furious, and those in Ultra Magnus' ship saw the Dinobot shuttle suddenly spinning away, trailing smoke and flames as it took a direct hit from a Decepticon missile. The pursuing Decepticons swooped on the remaining shuttle. A cluster of missiles all struck at the same time, and the Autobot craft vanished in a blinding flash and a whirling cloud of fragments.
The Autobots have been terminated!
Cried Cyclonus. As the Dinobot shuttle disintegrated, Hot Rod was thrown clear. He found himself tumbling through space towards the planet he had seen seconds before the attack. He hit its surface just off the coast of a wide sea and sank to the seabed. Instantly, he had to defend himself from a shoal of ferocious metallic fish. Fighting his way clear, he looked around him for a sign of the others. He saw nothing, but a sound came to him faintly through the water. It was Cup's voice calling for help. Hot Rod hurried in the direction of the sound and found Cup, in the grip of a giant robot squid. The squid was pulling his victim apart. Hot Rod went to Cup's assistance. The squid gripped him in one of its tentacles, but a laser blast to the lens of one of its mechanical eyes sent it retreating in a cloud of black ink. Hot Rod gathered up the scattered transformer pieces and carried them to the shore. There he reassembled his old friend, and Cup stood up and carefully tried all his moving parts.
You did an amazing job, lad. Amazing.
Then they transformed and set off to look for the Dinobots. The two Autobots raced across the strange planet. Suddenly they skidded to a halt and transformed back to robot shape. Their way was barred by a band of ferocious-looking warriors. Cup and Hot Rod walked forward. Cup decided to try to make friends.
Don't act hostile,
He said to Hot Rod.
and don't make any sudden moves.